Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parudikacharya Ashtotar Tata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktabinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. So, is it text 8? You're not sure? I think I read text 7. Okay, anyway, we'll do text 8. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay. On this 28th day of November 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Chapter 9, the most confidential knowledge. Text 8 on page 386. Hare Krishna. Yeah, go ahead. You can sit on the bench or you can sit here if you want. Or the chair, that's fine. Okay. Prakatim Swam Avashtabhya Visvajami Punak Punaha Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam Avasham Prakate Vishat Prakatim Swam Avashtabhya Visvajami Punak Punaha Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam Avasham Prakate Vishat Prakatim Swam Avashtabhya Visvajami Punak Punaha Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam Avasham Prakate Vishat Prakatim Swam Avashtabhya Visvajami Punak Punaha Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam Avasham Prakate Vishat
Prakritam Swam Avastabhya
Prakatim Swam Avashtabhya
Visrajami Punak Puna
Visvajami Punak Punaha
Bhutagramam Imam Krishnam
Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam
Avasam Prakate Vasat
Avasham Prakate Vishat. Good. Prakatim Swam Avashtabhya Visvajami Punak Punaha Bhutagramam Imam Kritsnam Avasham Prakate Vishat. Not tonight? Okay. Anyone online? Not tonight. Prakatim, the material nature, Swam, of my personal self, Avashtabhya, entering into, Visvajami, I create, Punak Punaha, again and again, Bhutagramam, all the cosmic manifestations, Imam, these, Kritsnam, in total, Avasham, automatically, Prakate, of the force of nature, Vishat, under obligation. Okay. Translation. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, the whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will it is automatically manifested again and again. And under my will it is annihilated at the end. Purport. This material world is the manifestation of the inferior energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This has already been explained several times. At the creation, the material energy is let loose as the Mahat Tattva, into which the Lord, as his first Purusha incarnation, Mahavishnu, enters. He lies within the causal ocean and breathes out innumerable universes. And into each universe the Lord again enters as Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. Each universe is in that way created. He still further manifests himself as Chirodakashaya Vishnu, and that Vishnu enters into everything, even into the minute atom. This fact is explained here. He enters into everything. Now, as far as the living entities are concerned, they are impregnated into this material nature. And as a result of their past deeds, they take different positions. Thus, the activities of this material world begin. The activities of the different species of living beings are begun from the very moment of the creation. It is not that all is evolved. The different species of life are created immediately along with the universe. Men, animals, beasts, birds, everything is simultaneously created because whatever desires the living entities had at the last annihilation are again manifested. It is clearly indicated here by the word avasham that the living entities have nothing to do with this process. The state of being in their past life, in the past creation, is simply manifested again, and all this is done simply by His will. This is the inconceivable potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And after creating different species of life, He has no connection with them. The creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the various living entities, and so the Lord does not become involved with it. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So, this, if you recall, text 2, we learned that this is going to be an explanation of the King of Knowledge. A very important verse with a long, long purport. And this 9th chapter is essential in the Bhagavad Gita. Srila Prabhupada would quote many verses from this chapter. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. So we've been hearing from Krishna about His amazing qualities. He said after that verse that He pervades this whole universe. Mayatatamidam savam, this is text 4. By me in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So unmanifested forms means you can't see. If you look up the word manifest, which I've done, it means visible. If something was manifested, it becomes visible to our eyes. So, but Krishna is unmanifested. Avyakta means invisible, really, invisible form. So how does that work? Well, he's explaining some of that in the present verse, in the purport. Is that, for instance, this whole universe is pervaded by Krishna through His expansion as the Chirodakshaya Vishnu, or the Super Soul. Now, the Super Soul is not only within everyone's heart. That's understood. Every living entity, even the trees, the plants, the insects, the bacteria, they all have Super Soul within. And he explains in the later chapters what his function is there. He says, Sarvasya chaham vidisannivishto mattak smritir jnanam apohanangsha. He says, I am in everyone's heart as the Super Soul. Sarvasya, Riddhi is the heart, vidisannivishto. And from me come knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness also. So you can see that in the lower animals. We've all learned in school how these animals, they work on instinct. Some bird is born and breaks out of the shell, and within 2 days they're already learning to fly, and they can fly right away. Well, how do they do that? It's not that they studied up on the aerodynamics or anything. You know, they're getting the information from inside. They're built, all of the machinery is there, and they just have to coordinate that with their brain waves and everything, and before you know it, they're flying. You know, and that's true for all these lower animals. Now, in the human form, it takes longer, right? There's a whole period of training and education because we have the higher intelligence. We're not just, lower animals whose main function is how can we make sure that, you survive long, you can eat, and you can reproduce, and then another generation comes. It's really just very rudimentary. But to figure it all out and how it's working, this is transcendental knowledge Krishna's providing, and Super Soul is providing direction from within. So in this way, but He's also present in every atom, not just living beings, but even there. In this way, He's all pervading. So it is said, even before you join the Hare Krishnas or anything, you may learn in school, maybe high school, about the Hindu Trinity, right? Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. So that's a real thing. But no, Westerners don't really know how that functions, that all of those three are expansions of Krishna. But they have different functions, and we'll learn, not so much in this book, but in the Bhagavatam in great detail, about how Brahma creates. He's the engineer. He doesn't create the raw material that's coming from Krishna, Mahatattva, all of these things. But he is the intelligence behind populating the universe. He's managing over the other demigods who are running, like Indra, heaven, and all these different things. So he's got a big job. And then you have the maintainer is Vishnu. He's sustaining as a super soul and as in every atom, keeping everything together. And Shiva is a destroyer. Some of you may be familiar with that Tandava Nritya, this dance of destruction, right, of Lord Shiva. So he helps to destroy, and he expands as the Rudra forms, and they help him. It all has to be dissolved eventually, and then come back into the body of Mahavishnu like that. And so there's this periodic creation, destruction, creation, maintenance, destruction. So where does Krishna fit in? He's the source of all of this. He is the source of Balaram. He expands as Balaram. Balaram expands as what they call the Chaturvyuha, these four different Vishnu forms, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and they have different functions. And then from the Sankarshan, there's a further expansion, and eventually you get to Mahavishnu, who's the same personality. This is what's one of the many inconceivable things about Krishna. He gets like the Matsya avatar. There's a fish incarnation, and there's a boar incarnation, the Shringadev. They're all Krishna. They're all, boar.
There were 8 total?
It's the Dasha avatar. It's 10, yeah. Huh? Buddha's one, later on. But some of them are Shaktivesh, means that they're empowered. They're not full expansions of Krishna. You learn there's the Svangsha. Svangsha means those who are equally as powerful as Krishna, but they don't manifest all those powers. Yeah.
In the earlier verse, did you say inferior? Did I hear that word?
Who?
In the earlier verse.
I'm not sure in what context. I may have said the word inferior.
It said inferior. I thought I heard it wrong.
Well, you'll have to. I'm sorry, I didn't. I'm not just one.
That was this material is the inferior energy.
Oh, the inferior energy. Yes.
What was that about?
Well, this is explained in the 7th chapter, where Krishna talks about para prakriti and apara prakriti. Para means transcendental or spiritual, and apara means material, unconscious. And Krishna, in the 7th chapter, he describes some of these same material energies that he's now referring to. There's 8, and we're all familiar with them: earth, solid matter, liquids, water, fire, like electricity or heat, and then fire we know. And then earth, water, fire, air, all kinds of gases. These are all inanimate energies. These are known as the inferior energies, apara prakriti. They're the building blocks of the material world, you see? Now our bodies are made of these things. We have the bones and the things, we got many liquids in there, air is circulating. But the presence of the soul, of the living entity, which is the superior energy, the para prakriti, is what keeps it going as a body. As soon as that soul leaves, because it's dysfunctional, the body reverts. You have to burn it, bury it, it reverts back to its elements.
Even ether is inferior energy?
Yes. It's subtle, and it's like space, but it's an inferior energy. And then you get even more subtle, the mind, and then the intelligence, and the most subtle of all is the sense of self, the ego. Now we have what's called a ahankar, and it's a false ego, because we're identifying ourselves with this body made of these material elements. But we're not. We're pure soul, pure consciousness. So this is the whole mission, is to act in such a way that when we finally leave this body as soul, which we must, the body is just a big machine, and machines eventually break down, including this whole earth, the whole universe, and our bodies. Then we don't have to take another one. The reason why we take body after body is because we are, our attention, our focus is on this material energy. And we're misidentifying ourselves. And we have so many unfulfilled desires when we leave the body. If only I could have done this, only I could have done that. Plus you have your karma. And you mix all those together, and that puts you in a certain body. hopefully another human body, but if you're not following any dharma, then you may very likely lose the human form of body. And you go down. You know, you never die. There's no death. Every single body dies. Nobody dies.
Come back to the coyote then.
You can be a coyote, you can be an insect, you know, depending on your work. So we want to avoid that. The whole basic mission is we don't want to come back. We have a book called Coming Back. You know, it describes empirical evidence of transmigration. Little children who remember something of their previous life, they're growing up, and as soon as they can talk, they say, "You're not my mommy." You know, I lived over in this village, you know, and this was my name, and this. And the parents said, "What is this nonsense?" You know, but sometimes, you know, there was a scientist, a psychologist back in the 70s and 80s, who actually went to India and checked these stories out, and then they found out, yes, there was somebody named like that, and they died.
Yeah, we grew up listening to all of these.
Yeah.
We are experiencing.
Yeah.
All of them.
You know, and sometimes, even in the West, we have this famous case. This was years ago. I saw on YouTube some little kid in the Midwest, you know, children of some Lutherans or something, you know, and he was claiming that he was a former World War II pilot. And this was my name, and I was riding, you know, a certain, you know, plane, you know, and they checked it out, and it all checked out. This guy died in a firefight, you know, in World War II.
And he has now pictures with those older people who are in their 80s and 90s.
Oh, yeah.
He's like a middle school guy, taking pictures with all his old.
I didn't follow it that much. But, you know, I mean, when you boil it down, it's pretty astounding. It's empirical proof of transmigration. Generally, almost universally, we forget the trauma of death and the trauma of rebirth and life in the womb. You know, you can't remember anything. It's everyone's like a what is it when you lose your memory? Amnesia. Yeah. Amnesia. We had a boy who joined. His name was Omar. I think he joined in LA. He came down here, stayed for a while, and he was a student up there at some college in LA. You know. Riding his bike and got hit, and boom, he hit his head and forgot what he was doing. He forgot that he was a student there and everything. And somehow he started wandering around, and he got off campus, and then he joined up with this other fellow, and they went traveling around, you know, the United States. He had a whole new life. Eventually, he met a devotee in Santa Barbara, or that Isla Vista, which is, if you're not familiar, that's the student community for the University of California at Santa Barbara. I spent some time up there. And he was an old devotee from the 60s who knew Prabhupada. And he met this fellow, and he started teaching him Krishna consciousness. He liked it, you know. And so eventually I think he wanted to find out who he was. And so he took pictures of them and put them up. He remembered that he had something to do with that university, you know, so he put up pictures on there. And if you know who this fellow is, please call this number. And that was his own number. And eventually he found out, okay, this is who I was, and he found his parents and everything. But by that time, he'd become attracted to Krishna consciousness. So he started his chanting and everything. And guess what the name he got? Omkar. What else? His name was Omar, so he got the name Omkar. And he did very well. I think he's in Japan now. But he had forgotten. And that we all forget. The trauma of death is so great, you know. So, can anyone here remember past life? No? No. You can. How much of it? Some of it. Okay. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, so here Krishna is describing this macro, how he is overseeing the creation. He's all of these beings merge into me as Mahavishnu. Nachamatstani, what is it? I pervade everything in my unmanifest form. That's what we explained through the Super Soul. And then he goes on, and he gives an analogy. Just as air is resting within the ether. Understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, that's ether, all created beings rest in me, because his energies are everywhere, so we're all within Krishna in that sense. And then he says, all the living entities come into me. Sarva bhutani kontaya prakritim yanti mamikam. At the end of the millennium means at the end of the day of Brahma, all material manifestations enter into my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again. So this is explained in this purport. After every day of Brahma, when he sleeps, the universe winds up. And I think we all merge into Garbhodakshaya Vishnu at that time. And nothing is manifest. And then when he wakes up, he creates it again. You know, the whole universe has to be, put together again and repopulated. So, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again. The whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will, it is automatically manifested again and again. Under my will, it is annihilated at the end. So he's describing some of his, astounding powers. And this is an important prerequisite. It's an important foundation for us understanding our position as part and parcel of Krishna and meant to be his servants. He is the master. He's all-powerful. And the wonderful thing is he's not, evil. He's not like a big demon like Hiranyakashipu. He was also lording it over for a while until he got killed. But he has no desire to do that. Why does he create this place? He created this is like a reformatory, this whole material world. We don't belong here. This is not our home, right? Back home, back to Godhead. So the reason he creates it is because we wanted it and we need to be reformed. Our mentality needs to be corrected. And so Krishna is concerned about that because he's our Father. You see? We've forgotten him, but he doesn't forget us. So he creates this place where we can try to act out our charade of being God and enjoying, and then being frustrated. And he's always present in some form, as the book, or as himself, or his representatives, the gurus, the instructing gurus, and all the sadhus, so that the knowledge is available. Srila Prabhupada, he fulfilled the mission of Lord Chaitanya and his spiritual master, that this knowledge would be taken out of India and be spread in the West in the English language. Because his spiritual master saw, that by the English language is so universal, it's so important. And sure enough, Prabhupada's books eventually have been translated into all the languages of the world. But it's such a great effort. But he took that on and he was empowered. We would call Prabhupada a Shakti-abesh avatar of Krishna, if you will, meaning that special power. I'll tell you a very interesting vignette. After Prabhupada disappeared, I didn't have very much, direct interaction with Srila Prabhupada. I did have a very fortunate meeting with him in Vrindavan, where he gave me the second initiation. It was, that was wonderful. But when he left went back, to Nitya Leela Pravishta, re-entered the eternal Leela of Krishna, we say, departed in the end of 1977, I wasn't there by his bedside when he departed. A few days later, I was in Vrindavan. Anyway, it was a big festival. Devotees were in shock. It was a tremendous adjustment period. But I had an assignment. I had an assignment as a BTG editor, Back to Godhead magazine. I worked for several years. And that was that in India, in Mayapur, the sacred land of Mayapur, where Lord Chaitanya was born and he had his early pastimes, one of Prabhupada's godbrothers, his senior godbrother, had an ashram across the Ganges River from where we have our property there. And we had heard that he had proof that Prabhupada was the Shakti-abesh avatar, like I just described. And so, being like a reporter, I said, well, my mission was assigned. I was assigned to go and see what is that proof. So I went across the river and I went to his ashram. I met one of his Prabhupada's dear godbrothers, Kinchana Krishna Babaji. He let me in the front gate. I went up to where Sridhar Maharaj was sitting. And I offered my Dhanabats, and he wanted to know my mission, and I told him. And as soon as I mentioned, I heard you had some proof that our Srila Prabhupada was Shakti-abesh avatar of Krishna. So he said, yes. So he asked his Babaji, Kinchana Krishna, to get the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's an edition that was published by the Gaudiya Math, which Prabhupada used in his translation work. So that was at hand. He brought it. So find this verse. He found the verse. And the verse is a famous verse. Unfortunately, I always forget the first line. But the first line says that Harinam Sankirtan is the Yuga Dharma. And then the second line says, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahaitar Pravartan. Unless one is empowered by Krishna, Krishna Shakti, without Krishna Shakti, one cannot spread that chanting all over the world. You see? So since Prabhupada did spread it all over the world, then he must be empowered. He had the Shakti. So that was his proof. We published a little article on that. So the idea is that this is how Krishna reaches out. This is how he tries to help us to regain our bearings and understand what the real truth is, who we are, and what our greatest benefit is. Our benefit is not to try to adjust this material world so somehow we can enjoy in it. There's no security and there's no happiness ultimately in this material world. There's the illusion of it, but it's temporary. Real happiness has to be unending. That's the standard, ananda, you see? But sense gratification is notoriously flickering. And what you have left is your memory of it, your desire to do it again, experience sort of one thing to another. But meanwhile, you're using up your precious time in the human body, which is meant for realizing who we are, who God is, what the relationship is, and to act in that relationship and ultimately rejoin Krishna in the spiritual world. That's this, in a few words, that's the simple mission. But the first step is understanding what we call the tattva. In other words, we all know that what's so attractive about Krishna is his beauty, his name, his prasadam, his devotees, his lila, right? The lila is what's so special about this. It's not just some dry meditation on some white light or something, you know? It's an all absorption in the details of Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. Those things are, when you really hear them properly described in the Shastra like this, they're very attractive, all attractive. So we are part of that lila. We've dropped out, you know, and tried to enjoy there here, but we're doing a very poor job of it. And ultimately we want to return there. So this is preliminary, this knowledge, how the material world is working, and Krishna's amazing powers, and how he's managing all this, creating it, and it's all merging into him. This is preliminary to our surrendering. This is my Lord, he loves me, you know, and I have full faith that if I surrender, that this will be very auspicious and it's the best thing I should do. So he's explaining. Okay, comment or question? Go ahead, Prabhu. Yes, go ahead, Darshan.
I have a question about Brahma. You said Brahma, the sleeping part. You know, I was wondering about, they say this, the dreamer, that this is an illusion, the Mayavada said it's an illusion. Is he dreaming? Are we in Brahma's dream right now?
No, we're not in Brahma's dream. Brahma does sleep. He sleeps for a long, long time. His daytime and his nighttime are both 4,320,000,000 years. So he's got 24 hours, it's over 8 billion years. And Krishna appears in each universe in a planet like Earth and in Vrindavan once in a day of Brahma, once in a 24-hour period of Brahma. So you can just see how fortunate we are. It's been yesterday, not even yesterday. You know, comparatively speaking, what's 5,000 years compared to 8 billion years, you know? So he just appeared, and then Lord Chaitanya just appeared less than yesterday, you know, 10 minutes ago. You know, this 500 years is nothing. So here we are, and we have books about them. We have, you know, the place is still there, Vrindavan, we can visit, you know, we have temples. So we're very fortunate. We shouldn't let the time pass. Avyarta kalat vam is the principle of devotion, is not to waste time. So this is good. We're reading Krishna's book, given by Krishna's pure devotee. We're properly using it. But also we should gradually take up the processes very strictly so that we can make good progress going back to Godhead. So the one we read today was 9, right? Was it 9? I think it was 8. Okay, so what he's saying here is that the whole cosmic order is under me, and under my will it is automatically manifested again and again, and under my will it is annihilated at the end. So behind all of this incredible creation and destruction is Krishna's desire. And we're part of it, and if we understand this, it's just like this. There's a nice prayer that we always chant when I greet the deities, and it goes, Shri, it says, So now I can't think of it. It's at the beginning of this book. Here it is. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandho, Jagatpate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate. Now this is, one of these words is Jagatpate, right? Now Jagatpate is this what we're reading, right? Jagatpate means Lord of the universe, you see? But it's a mixture, is very intimate pastimes. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, oh you who are an ocean of compassion, of mercy. Dina Bandho means the friend of the fallen, the friend of the poor. You know, we should feel that we're poor because we don't have love of God. That's the real prema dhan. He's the prema. So, but he's the friend. Okay, so I'm poor, but yeah, he's my best friend. And now he's Jagatpate. Oh, he's Jagatpate. That means he could give me anything I want. But I know that I shouldn't want anything material. That'll just keep me bound here. So we have a friend. He's the friend of the poor. We're all very poor. And he's the most powerful, almighty. So how fortunate we are. If we recognize that friendship, and we act as his friend, try to serve and hear and do the things that we're given as bhaktas, then we'll realize more and more of his friendship. So, we did 8. So the whole universe, Prakriti, the energy enters into him and stays dormant, and then again and again it comes in. This way, we're created helplessly. We don't have a voice in it. We haven't purified our consciousness. We still have material desires, karma. We need another body to start fulfilling that. And so that's beyond. That is not under our control. You know, at that point, it's all this destiny. We've created our own. So avashang pakate vashat, helplessly, avashang, automatically, by the force of nature, it's created again. And this is a big, periodic creation destructions going on. Krishna's describing this. All right, so let's read 9 now. Go ahead. We have a mic?
Oh, I can speak.
No, because we have people out there. Just hold it. Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
Rajaveja Rajaguyam Pavitramidam Uttamam, right? I just want to make sure, like, I understand the concept of king of education and king of the most confidential knowledge.
Secret, yeah.
So that's material knowledge, right? Education part, and the other is spiritual knowledge.
All spiritual.
I know it's all spiritual.
All spiritual. Yeah, Rajavidya, the king of education, is spiritual education.
Spiritual education.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's all spiritual.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I was getting confused. That's what there we go.
But even though it's spiritual, it's pratyakshaavagamam done. Pratyaksha means it's directly perceivable. Just like, this drum over here. I mean, it can be used for material sound, songs and everything. But because this mridanga, although it's a little, we could maybe tune it up a little bit, but it's used for a kirtan. So it's transcendental. It's become spiritualized. Even though it's matter, it can become spiritualized when connected to Krishna in service. And that goes for us also, for our hands, our feet, all of our senses and our mind. That's what yoga means, connection. And the intelligence is, yes, I'm going to act in such a way that I'm connecting my words, my what I hear, everything to Krishna. And in this way, the more you're saturated with Krishna thought, the more spiritualized you become, purified. And that's, and therefore it becomes spiritualized. Even though you could say it's a stone statue, it's not a stone statue if you understand the significance of the deity.
And at that point, it becomes confidential, right?
It's confidential knowledge. It's secret. Confidential means that it can't be understood by everybody, and it's not really open to everyone. Even though they may read the same words, there's so many editions. And probably at the beginning of this book, he says, "What's the need of another Bhagavad Gita? There's so many translations already." But if people are not devotees, they can't really explain it. They may give you this. I read a Bhagavad Gita before I met the devotees. It was very thin when it was just translation, it was a Penguin edition. But I had no idea what to make of it. It's pretty, you need it explained, That's the whole idea. It's being given by a spiritual master.
I've read another version of it, and it's Yeah,
Okay.
doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
okay.
It just doesn't.
I don't know what to do with this. Even though Krishna says, "Okay, surrender unto me," well, how do I do that? What does that mean?
Yeah.
But if you're in the devotees, okay, I know what to do. Chant Hare Krishna. Do this. All right, should we go on? Yeah. All right. 9. Nachamantani karmani nibadanti dhananjaya udasina vadasinam asaktam teshu karmasu. O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. Report. One should not think in this connection that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no engagement. In his spiritual world, he is always engaged. In the Brahma Samhita 5.6 it is stated, Atma Ramasya tasyasti prakratyana samagamaha. He is always involved in his eternal, blissful spiritual activities, but he has nothing to do with these material activities. Material activities are being carried on by his different potencies. The Lord is always neutral in the material activities of the created world. This neutrality is mentioned here with the word udasinavat. Although he has control over every minute detail of material activities, he is sitting as if neutral. The example can be given of a high court judge sitting on his bench. By his order, so many things are happening. Someone is being hanged, someone is being put into jail, someone is awarded a huge amount of wealth, but still he is neutral. He has nothing to do with all that gain and loss. Similarly, the Lord is always neutral, although he has his hand in every sphere of activity. In the Vedanta Sutra 2.134, it is stated, Vaishamya Nair Grinye Na. He is not situated in the dualities of this material world. He is transcendental to these dualities, nor is he attached to the creation and annihilation of this material world. The living entities take their different forms in the various species of life according to their past deeds, and the Lord doesn't interfere with them. So this is, describing Krishna's. He's detached because his real interest, his personal interest, is in the spiritual world. He has basically one way in which he enjoys, and that is through relationship, enjoying the relationship that we have here as in imitation. What would we have? Where would the life be if we had no friends, we had no love, people to love or love us? That's what makes the world go round, as they say. But here, because it's a reflection, and it's tragically temporary. You don't want it to be temporary, but it is ultimately till death do us part, right? That's in the marriage. So the soul, we ourselves are eternal, and we're looking for that eternal platform of bliss, of happiness, and it can't be found in the material world. This is the eternal frustration of the conditioned soul. You're looking for happiness, you're looking for security, and neither of them can be found here in the material world. So, so Krishna's position is that he doesn't have any personal interest in the doings of this material world, because he's concerned with the spiritual world. But because we're here, we're the spiritual element. The living entities are the spiritual element in the material world. And we're all his children. Therefore, he makes the arrangement of setting up the material world in such a way. And as I mentioned, coming periodically, and personally, very seldom as Krishna, but he also has other avatars that come. And he leaves his representatives, and the books, and he has the whole Vedas, all of these things that he does, in order to try to enlighten those souls who are somewhat receptive, who somehow perform some pious activity, even by accident, agyata sukriti, unknown, and you do something, and therefore you get your exposure to the truth. So he's always looking to somehow enlighten us and find some souls who can come back, because it's like a father. A son runs away from home. Classic, he goes to San Francisco, and his father's back in Montana, and he's going, when will he call? When will he, does he need anything? Maybe I can help him. How can I? So the father's thinking that the son isn't thinking of the father. The son is doing his business there, whatever it may be. But the father is thinking, oh, is he okay? Like that. So Krishna is concerned, and he stays with us as a super soul, always trying to give us good guidance, which we're not listening to, which we have a barrier because we're conditioned that so that's the purpose of this world. Give us a chance, give these wayward souls a chance to try to enjoy and learn that this is not the place of enjoyment. And I'll send my representatives, and they'll be always looking for those receptive who are looking for the way out, who are receptive to the message. And that's still going on. So this is what's actually happening. He's describing all of these things, that he's, in one sense, he's indifferent. The things are going on, he's made the arrangement. But in another sense, he's not indifferent. Is that he's hoping that they'll wake up and start searching for the truth. So that's the situation we have. Next verse is very often quoted. How is this world going on? Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunanina konteya jagad vipadivartate. This material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. Purport. It is clearly stated here that the Supreme Lord, although aloof from all the activities of the material world, remains the Supreme Director. The Supreme Lord is the Supreme Will and the background of this material manifestation. But the management is being conducted by material nature. Krishna also states in the Bhagavad Gita that of all the living entities in different forms and species, I am the Father. The Father gives seeds to the womb of the mother for the child, and similarly the Supreme Lord, by his mere glance, injects all the living entities into the womb of material nature, and they come out in their different forms and species according to their last desires and activities. All these living entities, although born under the glance of the Supreme Lord, take their different bodies according to their past deeds and desires. So the Lord is not directly attached to this material creation. He simply glances over material nature. Material nature is thus activated, and everything is created immediately. Because he glances over material nature, there is undoubtedly activity on the part of the Supreme Lord, but he has nothing to do with the manifestation of the material world directly. This example is given in the Smriti. When there is a fragrant flower before someone, the fragrance is touched by the smelling power of the person, yet that the smelling and the flower are detached from one another. There is a similar connection between the material world and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Actually, he has nothing to do with this material world, but he creates by his glance and ordains. In summary, material nature, without the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, cannot do anything. Yet the Supreme Personality is detached from all material activities. Now, Prabhupada, when this would come up about the relationship between Krishna and the material energy, he would often quote this verse from the Brahma Samhita. The Brahma Samhita, as the name indicates, is a song of Brahma. So he composed this song shortly after creation, and he says there's Srishti Stiti Pralaya Sadhana Shakti Rekha Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Babharti Durga Ichhanurupam Apayasya Chachestate Sa Govinda Mari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord. This is the refrain of the song. And it says Srishti Stiti Pralaya. This is creation, maintenance, and destruction. Srishti, Stiti, and Pralaya. Sadhana Shakti Rekha. So it's carried out by the material energy. Shakti Chayeva, but she's acting as like a shadow of Krishna's will. In other words, she's simply carrying out his desires. And it looks like everything's happening by nature. How's it? But there's a controller behind nature. Just like if some ant would crawl over here, this would be like some natural, formation, like some mountains, we say, oh, and his movement, it's happening automatically. How's it going? It doesn't realize there's a person behind it who's, So that we're like that in relation to this material world. We can't really see the essential element, which is the consciousness of God, and how he's is ordering material energy to go there. Maya Jakshena. Aksha is eyes. So Maya Jaksha means under my supervision. You see? He's desiring, he's ordaining, and the Prakriti, the material Shakti, is carrying out the orders. Okay. So, as I mentioned, I am the Father. Prabhupada refers to that in the latter chapter, in the 14th chapter. We'll read that verse. So then, in the next verse is also often quoted that most people, because they can't see God, Krishna doing that, they deride him. They don't think that there is a God. Avajanandi mamudha. Text 11. Avajanandi mamudha. Manushim tanam ashritam. Param bhavam jananto. Mama Bhuta Maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. All right, we're going to read part of this purport. It's very long. From the other explanations of the previous verses in this chapter, it is clear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although appearing like a human being, is not a common man. The Personality of Godhead, who conducts the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the complete cosmic manifestation, cannot be a human being. Yet there are many foolish men who consider Krishna to be merely a powerful man and nothing more. Actually, he is the original Supreme Personality, as is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Padama Krishna. He is the Supreme Lord. There are many Ishwaras, or controllers, and one appears greater than the other, or than another. In the ordinary management of affairs in the material world, we find some official or director, and above him there is a secretary, above him a minister, and above him a president. Each of them is a controller, but one is controlled by another. In the Brahma Samhita, it is said that Krishna is the supreme controller. There are many controllers, undoubtedly, both in the material and spiritual world. But Krishna is the supreme controller, Ishvarak Parama Krishna, and his body is Satchid Ananda, non-material. Material bodies cannot perform the wonderful acts described in previous verses. His body is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Although he is not a common man, the foolish deride him and consider him to be a man. His body is called here Manushim because he is acting just like a man, a friend of Arjun's, a politician involved in the battle of Kurukshetra. In so many ways he is acting just like an ordinary man, but actually his body is Satchidananda Vigraha, eternal bliss and knowledge absolute. This is confirmed in the Vedic language also, Satchidananda Rupaya Krishnaya. I offer my obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is the eternal blissful form of knowledge. And this is the first verse of the Gopal Tapani Upanishad. There are other descriptions in the Vedic language also. Tamekam Govindam, you are Govinda, the pleasure of the senses and the cows. Satchidananda Vigraham, and your form is transcendental, full of knowledge, bliss, and eternality. Gopal Tapani Upanishad 138. Despite the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna's body, its full bliss and knowledge, there are many so-called scholars and commentators of the Bhagavad Gita who deride Krishna as an ordinary man. The scholar may be born an extraordinary man due to his previous good work, but this conception of Shri Krishna is due to a poor fund of knowledge. Therefore he is called Mudha. For only foolish persons consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being. The foolish consider Krishna an ordinary human being because they do not know the confidential activities of the Supreme Lord and his different energies. They do not know that Krishna's body is a symbol of complete knowledge and bliss, that he is the proprietor of everything that be, and that he can award liberation to anyone. Because they do not know that Krishna has so many transcendental qualifications, they deride him. So we're going to begin with that verse tomorrow, because it's such an important verse. And I've left time for at least a short little poem. So, today the poem is Manasija Pani Jushte Labdapatosmi Dushte Timidagahana rupe, hanta sangsara kupe, ajita nikala lakshahe tamuddhara daksham upanayama haste bhakti rajum namaste. Bhakti rajum means the rope of bhakti. Fallen in this deep and dark and dirty well of Maya, threatened by the snake of lust, whose venom burns like fire. Helplessly I plead, O Lord, whose strength is ne'er in doubt, place the rope of bhakti in my hands and pull me out. So this is how we should pray to Krishna. Okay, let's let us adjourn. We'll have a nice kirtan. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.
Did you write that poem, Dravida?
Do I like it?
Did you write it?
Yes, I wrote it.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a bunch of others too.